So he's analyzed the chirps, and he can show that the sounds are different that these prairie dogs make if a coyote or a red-tailed hawk or a dog or a person is coming close. And they can tell the difference between a large person, a small person, a person wearing green, a person wearing red. This is all contained within the sounds.
The library was my space, and there was just so much.
To the Harbor Grace excursion with the boys to have a time.
Does my cat love me? Like, love me? I want you to talk to me about this idea of affection. Is the cat really feeling affection towards me? Or am I projecting?
Well, you're a nice person. I think that you're projecting quite a lot.
Okay.
But not, it's hard to actually answer that specific question, does your cat love you? I'm sure your cat feels affection for you, and you can see evidence of that. But the issue is, and this is something that became clear to me when I was researching the book, that what you know about somebody's pet is really what that person thinks about their pet, and not what the pet actually is thinking, if it's thinking at all, or doing. I can go on.
Please.
Okay, so I'll give you an example from the dog world, and that is, does your dog have a guilty expression when it's done something that you didn't want it to do?
Yeah, okay.
That's a common belief, as you can tell. There have been some really great definitive experiments about this, where imagine the setup. You set it up in a room like a kitchen. You have an experimenter, they're neutral. You have the owner and the dog and a plate of food. The owner says, do not, or whatever order they use, do not eat this food. And then they leave the room, the door is closed. The experimenter takes the food out of the bowl and then invites the owner back in. The owner comes back in, the food's gone. The dog has a guilty look. What actually is happening is, as soon as the owner sees the dish is empty, presumes the dog did what it wasn't supposed to do, and starts to express dissatisfaction and anger. The dog sees that and knows that something bad is going to happen, and so it reacts. So people found this experiment somewhat hard to swallow, especially dog owners. And so they did an elaboration of it where same setup, person leaves, food is taken out, and then the owner comes back in and is asked, can you tell from your dog's expression whether the dog took the food or the experimenter took the food? And they were right 50% of the time.
Oh, wow.
So, if I can sort of extrapolate a lot from your question, the fact is, I don't think you know what's going on in your cat's mind.
Yet. You do also, right? Has anyone had a chance to read the book yet, or do we have copies of it? It is a fabulous read. And I finished it last night, actually for almost the second time, because I read it before, but then I wanted to revisit it.
That's better than the guy who said, I haven't quite finished it, but ChatGPT got a summary of it.
Oh, no.
Anyway, go ahead.
But this is something that you do sort of touch upon, the idea that science, there are businesses, there are companies that are working towards trying to figure out what is happening in our pets' minds. They've come so far with the whales. What type of whale was it?
Yeah, actually more than one, but sperm whales now analyzing their click sounds, it looks like they actually have a structure, a linguistic structure to their click sounds, and you can hear what are like clauses and conjunctions and everything else. So the push, especially to use AI to understand sounds at least, is really active in wild animals. And it's getting there. There is a prize that can be won now called the Doolittle Prize, after, of course, Dr. Doolittle. And the idea is you have to show that, let's take a cat.
Please.
Or a vocal animal like a dog.
Okay.
And what you have to do is make a sound that the dog would make. You're not saying sit, you're woof, or something like that, in a variety of circumstances, and the dog has to respond as it would if you were actually a dog. So if you think you think you understand an aggressive sound, you've got the dog that you're addressing, and you don't have to use your own voice, you can manufacture a sound. The dog has to respond appropriately. So there's a lot of money at stake in this contest, but the two Israeli scientists who devised it have said, nah, we don't think we're ever going to figure out.
So it's certainly not in our lifetime.
Yeah, and there's an amazing guy in Arizona, Kon Slobodchikov, who studies prairie dogs. And he has shown definitively that, and they stand at the side of their den and they chirp. So he's analyzed the chirps, and he can show that the sounds are different that these prairie dogs make if a coyote or a red-tailed hawk or a dog or a person is coming close. And they can tell the difference between a large person, a small person, a person wearing green, person wearing red. This is all contained within the sounds. But see, I can't really express enough just how preliminary this kind of stuff is. That makes sense, right? Alarm calls that actually prompt you to do the right thing, which is hide if it's a coyote. But when the prairie dogs aren't being threatened and they're just kind of standing around, what are they thinking? I mean, they might not be thinking anything.
Yeah.
And I think people with dogs and cats especially, but all other pets as well, are a little afraid that if you dig deep, that's what you're going to find.
Yeah, it's true. Well, you've had you wrote that you had about a dozen pets, from cats and dogs to lizards, turtles, and even fish. And right now there is Robbie, the dog.
Yes, Robbie.
What is the most exciting thing that Robbie has taught you as a human being?
Actually, I just learned something in the last week or two, because my dog, and this is typical of dogs, take him for a walk, he wants to sniff something like every 10 steps. And after a while, it's kind of irritating. I want to just keep walking, jerk the leash. And then I realized, I stop unexpectedly too. I get a cell phone call or something, I want to look at something. I don't bother explaining it to him. He doesn't complain. So why do I have the right to complain? So I've decided dog walking now it's a 50-50 thing. You respect the dog, and the dog respects you. Otherwise, he's a pretty weird dog. He does things for no apparent reason, but that just could be my mental. I just can't get into his mind enough to know why, if I'm standing, suddenly he'll run to the length of the leash so fast that at the end he gets caught. And then, do you think he just stops? No, he runs to the other end and does the same thing. He'll do that like 3 times and then stop. There is no explaining that.
There is no explaining
At least as far as we've gone.
You write really beautifully about our ancestor sort of fascination with animals, like going back to the Neanderthals 130,000 years ago with eagle talons and feathers, to then our Ice Age ancestors, of course, the famous cave paintings of animals in France and Spain. And one of the reasons I think why so many of us appreciate and enjoy you a great deal is that you like facts. You like evidence-based things, and the science behind that fascination, our ancestors' fascination with animals, is still sort of up for grabs. But if you had to posit something that you're probably not comfortable doing, but I'm going to ask you anyway, what do you think it is? Where did this fascination come from?
Yeah, I don't want to answer that question.
Okay.
No,
Sorry.
I think you've got to look beyond pet ownership. And I know some people don't like the idea of being called an owner, but that's really what it is. I think you've got to look at all our relationships with animals. Like you said, the Neanderthals were obsessed with eagle feathers and talons, apparently from what, the tiny fraction of stuff that they left behind we have. The Ice Age paintings in Lascaux, I'm lucky enough to have seen those, and there's one human depicted on all the walls of the Lascaux caves. One human. And all the rest are either mostly animals they probably hunted. Yeah. So there's been this strand of fascination with animals over time. And when you consider that the first wolves actually became dogs over a long period of time, that might have been 30,000 years ago. Cats maybe 9,000 or 10,000 years ago, and then a variety of other animals that have become domesticated. So that's the line to pets. But then, if you go back 5,000 years to the Assyrian Empire, one of the kings would go out, conquer an area, and bring back hundreds, if not thousands, of captive animals, and then set up a hunt where he would be protected and guarded, and they'd release a lion and they'd kill it. But he was using our love and reverence of animals to sort of advertise himself. Look, I am dominant over all these animals. Then you fast forward to Pablo Escobar, cocaine king, who had a zoo.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why did he have a zoo? It wasn't for the public, I can tell you that. It's a symbol of power. So some people, there's a term biophilia, which describes what might be an innate attraction to animals, and I think some people do it in an honest way, like owning a pet, where they really feel it's a companion. Some people have advertised themselves. Tiger King, that amazingly terrible TV series of a few years ago. The only reason people were interested at all in him was for his tigers. Mm-hmm. So they're very, very powerful symbols. Now, where that started, I think it's going to be very difficult for us ever to answer that, because even the Neanderthals, they were doing this, but what were their feelings about animals? And if we don't know them, it's sort of hard to compare them to now.
By the time we get to the Egyptians, I want to talk about, because I hadn't read about it before your book.
And you're a cat person.
I know, but this grim discovery, was it I don't remember when the discovery was, but briefly, they found about 180,000 mummified cats in one Egyptian tomb.
Yep.
And later sold the remains of that to somewhere in Great Britain to use as fertilizer.
Well, so this was actually quite late, like long after ancient Egypt, but in the late 19th century, a farmer was plowing a field, and he started to uncover hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of cat mummies. It was a pretty horrible scene, I gather, because bits of dried out cat flesh were being blown by the wind. Anyway, a huge amount of it was sold in England to use as fertilizer. So, you might take that example as, well, that's kind of horrible, because it was pretty evident from the large number of cat mummies, that some of them were just kittens who'd had their neck broken to be made into a mummy. But this was because of the enormous reverence ancient Egyptians had for cats. And there were two gods that were basically cat gods. And it was your job as a citizen to pay obeisance to the god. And the way you did that was to offer it a cat mummy. So how do you produce enough cat mummies? There were festivals around these gods. There were hundreds, probably thousands of cat mummies offered to the god. How do you create them? You do the equivalent of a puppy mill, only with kittens.
Mill.
And yet, there's lots of Egyptian art showing household cats eating a fish, comfortable under the table.
Right.
Obviously, a highly prized pet. So, the cat, unlike dogs, really, cats have had a much more varied history. I mean, in Europe in the 15 and 1600s, there were efforts to exterminate cats as far as you can tell. Like they were, I won't even go into the details, but they were basically burned to death, thrown off the top of buildings. And it was kind of a weird association to witches, black cats, witches, anti-religious, heretical behavior. Fortunately, we're in a more enlightened era now. But dogs have never had that kind of dramatic up and down swings with the way they were treated by people.
Just the irony of the great reverence for the cat, yet killing them en masse. It's a
Well,
hard thing to reconcile in the brain.
Yeah, no,
but-
I mean, and I don't think as people living 3,000 to 4,000 years later, we can actually get into the
No.
Egyptian mind. And obviously it's cognitive dissonance to us, but it must have not have been to them.
It certainly wasn't. It made a heck of a lot of sense to them.
By the way, I called you a cat person, but I should clarify that I've had cats and I've had dogs. Does that mean I was a dog person and then I was a cat person? Then I was a reptile person? Do I look reptilian? I don't know. I've looked at, honestly, every study I could find that sought to find human personality characteristics that would identify some subgroup as dog people. And they're all over the map. And you simply can't conclude anything from them. They go along the lines of, well, people who are more extroverted tend to be dog people. People who are comfortable by themselves might tend to be cat people. But it's really hard to tell which came first. And, dog people might be said to be more active, but you've got to walk a dog.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a dog and you're not active, there's a problem.
Yeah.
So I basically throw up my hands and say, you're whatever you want to be. And honestly, the science of pets is really the science of pet owners. Because you wouldn't believe the number of psychology analyses of pet owners trying to understand why did that guy buy a boa constrictor and ride the subway with it wrapped around his
Yeah.
neck?
Yeah.
Well, I actually know the answer to that, but
Of course you do.
there are people that like to advertise themselves with their pets. I'm
Yep.
sure you all know some.
I have a baseball hat with a picture of my cat on it, for example. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm one of those
Yeah,
people.
you are a cat person.
I am, but we'll get to that. I have some selfish questions a little later, but we got to make the people happy. Can I get a show of hands, actually? Dog people? Interesting.
Underlining that just means you own a dog.
Cat people?
Oh, good. That's a
That's
really
a
nice
healthy
mix.
mix.
Okay, but let's extend this. Bird people. Yay. Parrots? Parrot people?
Whoa, cool. Small one, okay.
Yeah. The large, I wrote about, I felt I needed to step aside from dogs and cats and talk about some other pets. And so but I wanted them to be like radically different, not tropical fish, but something. I have nothing against tropical fish, but actually I think they're the third most popular pet in North America.
Oh, wow.
So I wrote about horses, not generally considered pets, but honestly, I didn't know much about horses. The more you learn about horses, the more you think they'd be unbelievably great pets. It's just hard to get them to lie on the couch.
Sleep at the end of the double bed.
Yeah,
The double bed.
and so I also looked into parrots, and they are fascinating because there's, especially African gray parrots, super smart, talk a lot, can be really entertaining, have senses of humor apparently. But there's two issues. One is you can't be old when you acquire one because it will outlive you.
Right.
And then who's going to take the parrot? Who's going to take a 40-year-old parrot that swears all the time? It's actually it's a problem. The other thing is that African gray parrots are being taken out of the wild in numbers that have turned them from being common to endangered. And it's all the illegal pet trade. They get smuggled around the world. And so I actually, when I was writing it, I looked at the International Union, the IUCN. It tracks populations of every species. There were like 320 something parrot species, and about 8 were actually increasing in number.
Oh, wow.
And a few were neutral, and all the rest were declining. So, I love the idea of parrots as a pet, but I would really, really caution people before they acquire one, make sure where it comes from, make sure it's young, make sure you have a plan in case it outlives you.
So you wrote about horses, unconventional pets, horses, parrots, and also hydra, which was one of the most fascinating chapters for me to read about. For those who don't know, can you explain what makes this creature so remarkable?
I can, but I will admit that having hydras as a pet might be a little bit of a stretch for some people. Anyway, they are not microscopic, but a hydra, a large one is probably like that. And they're basically a tube with tentacles at the top. And they're ambush predators like rattlesnakes. They sit in the water, in like pond water, and when small creatures like water fleas come by, they grab them with their tentacles, they sting them, and then they consume them, and that's basically all they do. But they are fascinating because if you take one, and the definitive work on this was written in 1744, take it and cut it in half this way. So here's the tube, here are the tentacles, cut it like that. This half will grow a top with tentacles, this half will grow bottom. Okay, so then cut it this way. Doesn't matter. Those things, each half looks like an open hot dog bun now. Each one grows another half. And if you really were able to, and scientists can do this in the lab, you can disassemble it to its individual cells. And then if you mix, you have to have 4 different kinds of cells in the mix. Basically mix it all together, sit it, they will reassemble into hydras. So, there is a pet, a relatively common one now called an axolotl, which is a kind of salamander that never matures, and so it always has gills, never becomes an air-breathing animal. But it can do the same thing as a hydra with some limitations. Cut off a leg, it'll grow a leg. They're becoming popular as pets, and I fear that a lot of people acquire these axolotls because they can do the fun thing. Oh, let's cut off all its legs, and then it'll grow its legs back. Whereas with hydra, which are so plentiful it's laughable, you really want to do that thing? Be my guest. Cut it into 15 pieces, put it back in the jar, and it'll grow again. I have to confess, I didn't really think Like, I'm so glad you found them fascinating.
Yeah.
Because I sort of thought, okay, this is my free chapter where I can write about whatever the hell I want.
And you chose the
And I'll
Hydra.
call it a pet. Anyway.
I thought it was so interesting, I guess, because hearing about this cellular regeneration, are there advantages perhaps for humans down the line, or scientists?
That's definitely why people are so interested scientifically in axolotls, because they're a little bit closer to us, and biologically. But yeah, that's the interest. I mean, even lizards I have at my place north of Toronto live under the rocks. You can cut off. They will shed their tail, right? If a predator grabs them by the tail, they just get rid of the tail and run away, and they'll regrow a tail. But these abilities are limited in the number of organisms that have them. When we are babies, we can lose tip of the finger up to about halfway up the fingernail, and it'll grow back. But you soon lose even that ability. So obviously, from the amputation sort of point of view, you'd love to be able to do this, but we're still a long way away.
Let's shift gears to animal pet names. This was a really great chapter. Quick story, my childhood cat started off being called Valentino. Then he morphed into Bruiser, who's a red tabby cat, Bruiser. And then all the kids in the neighborhood, they started calling him Big Balls. I will let you guess why.
I thought that was a guy Elon Musk hired for Doge.
But that's not really a question, is it? But my cat was called Big Balls, yeah.
Was he neutered?
No, he wasn't. This is before.
Funnily enough, eh?
Yeah, you can imagine. Yeah, you put two and two together real quick. You're sharp. You're fast. So what do the names we choose for our pets say about us, or that other people choose for us?
Well, honestly, a book could be written about that.
He wrote a chapter, FYI.
If you look at wherever there's been a history gathered about common, like dog and cat names, the ones from a couple of 3 centuries ago are partly unpronounceable and mysterious. They don't really communicate anything. Now, of course, I'm struggling to think of a good example, and I can't because they're so weird. More recently, though, if we look at pet names now, movies have an amazing influence. So starting back a few decades, when you had movies with Rin Tin Tin or other heroic dogs, the movie would come out if it was a popular movie, and then you'd see a spike the next year in the number of purebred puppies of that particular breed. And then it would stay like this for a while. 101 Dalmatians,
Yeah.
same thing. Even Cujo, which was the evilest dog imaginable, sparked a huge burst in St. Bernard acquisitions. So, and Paris Hilton carries around a little dog, and everybody wants a dog that's like a purse. And I say that with great respect because there are people in my family. I have 2 sets of Chihuahuas that my children own, and I've come to love them,
Aww.
which is something that I might not have said before they owned them. but they're actually, they're really pretty cool dogs. So these things, Tom Cruise, Maverick, a lot of dogs became called Maverick. My wife and I like to name pets after people. She has a brother named Rob, hence we have a dog named Robbie.
Robbie's named
But
after?
no, that's not quite true.
Okay.
But lots of people do that.
Close enough.
So it's, there are a lot of factors that go into it. It's very, dog names sometimes used to be a little bit like your cat, like Speedy.
Yeah, Rover,
Yeah.
or not Rover, you write about a number of them, but yeah.
Yeah, that actually, or, See, can't think of one. All these old names have vacated my brain for some reason. But, yeah. There are names that apply, and then there are ironic names that, Speedy is a dog that just lies around in front of the fireplace all the time.
Right.
And the other thing that's interesting is that the history of dog breeds themselves, in that there are now internationally more than 300 different breeds, with new ones coming online all the time. Some of them are ancient, Basenjis and greyhounds, Salukis, all of those are depicted in Egyptian wall paintings, or at least dogs that look amazingly like them. There are some inscriptions on walls, drawings carved into rock in the Middle East that are people hunting with dogs on leashes. These are 6,000 years old. And
the domesticated dogs were domesticated about 30,000 years old?
It's the actual first definitive dog is 14,200 years old. But it's a dog already.
Right.
And then when you think the process of wolves becoming dogs had to have taken hundreds, if not a few thousand years, because they're quite different, behaviorally especially. So, the thought, the idea that you could see dogs already on leashes actually participating in hunts 6,000 years ago is pretty amazing, considering the first off-leash park was 1979.
Wow, that's incredible. Now I'm bringing it back to big balls just for a second, because when I hit puberty...
when you start doing these events, there are some things you can never anticipate. And one of them is your interviewer repeatedly referring to what she's about to talk about.
Like I was saying, so big balls. I developed an allergy to big balls. Sorry, I didn't plan that one out. Okay, I developed an allergy to my cat. How
There's
about
also
that?
a point where you want to become the interviewer, because there are thoughts that aren't being followed up. Continue.
My dad was a school teacher, so he had taught in a rural community. We tried to rehouse the cat because of my allergy. It was so bad, a lot of breathing problems.
Yep.
And so I said goodbye to the cat, love you, miss you, see you later. He went to go live on a beautiful farm. One day I came home from school and I saw my brother and my dad outside the K car with one of those Adidas gym bags. And I was like, hey guys, where are you going? And they're like, nothing. And the bag was just shaking. The cat had come back from a farm about 25 kilometers away 3 times. They managed to hide it from me twice because they knew if I saw him again, I'd just be on inhalers and learn to live with it. But anyway, you write a beautiful chapter called Road Trip in the book about this idea of cats and dogs. There are movies made about it, The Incredible Journey, of course. And is there something definitive? Do we have an idea about how they know how to do this? Some stories end up getting exaggerated. I swear, I'm not exaggerating about big balls. I was there.
There's a sentence in itself. So that's a great question, and I think it is an unresolved mystery. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're talking 20 blocks away or something, I think there's enough information to an animal, a pet, maybe magnetic fields, although that's still kind of ambiguous, maybe the terrain, maybe familiar landmarks. I think all of that is possible, and yours was what, 25K?
Yeah, let's say 20.
I think that's, for any of those mechanisms that I just mentioned, I think that's pushing it. But the real stories are hundreds of kilometers. And some
Over
of them,
years in some
of them you
cases.
can't prove, right?
Yeah.
It's a person's claim, and it's probably not true. But there have been, animals with microchips that have gone 2,000 miles or 2,000 kilometers back home. Dogs tending to go wherever they think the owner is. Cats sometimes mostly wanting to return to their so-called territory. But there's no explanation for these that I've ever seen or could even imagine, because what you'd have to say is that somehow pets, cats and dogs, have some of the same mechanisms that migrating birds have. Sun compass, constellations. But that really stretches it for me, because migrating birds rely on that information. They wouldn't have evolved to be alive today if they didn't have that capacity. Monarch butterflies,
Right.
they start here, they end up in Mexico. Are you kidding? And especially since the ones that leave here are not the ones that left Mexico. They're like third generation. So yes, there are wild animals that can do that. I spent a lot of my life in Alberta, and you can have a problem grizzly, and you can relocate it 500 kilometers, and it will come back. So mammals have some mechanisms like that, but I still think, and actually nobody can really tell you, here's how the grizzly finds its way back. There's no familiar terrain 500 kilometers away. So they're getting something, whether it's magnetic, astronomical, I don't know. But I don't understand those stories. And they're obviously fascinating, but they're obviously going to be incredibly difficult to investigate.
Yeah.
I mean, who's going to allow their cat to be taken 500 kilometers away and abandoned? There are
See what
probably people
happens.
like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
and then you track the animal the whole way, but that still doesn't tell you how it did it.
Jay, this is your 21st book. That is remarkable. And yeah, I think we should, yeah. But I want to ask you a little bit about your writing process. Like, just practically, do you write in the morning? Sweet snacks, salty snacks? Are you having coffee? You got your pajamas on? Like, give us the image.
Well, first of all, you have to have a topic that really absorbs you, like big balls. But lacking that, so I find...
Sorry, it's the mic. I'm so sorry.
It's all right. My dog makes weirder sounds than that. I think the first thing that I would admit about writing is that I like researching as much or maybe even more than writing. Because it's finding out, in the case of pets, obviously, I found out lots of things that make me think about my dog in a different way. Or frankly, other dogs. And if we have time, I want to talk about tail wagging.
Please.
But if I haven't been writing, and I sit down, I say, okay, I got it. Like, I'm a deadline person. If I weren't given any deadlines, I would not be here tonight.
You'd keep researching, wouldn't you?
Well, I just wouldn't write. So at some point I have to sit down and start writing. So I write. And I have come to know that the next day when I look at that writing, it will be so god-awful. And I'm not exaggerating. I'll look at it and I will say, I can't believe that I wrote that just yesterday. And somewhere in it, there's an idea, maybe, but that's about all. So I have to have momentum. I have to have written the day before. Then I will write better. And the other thing is, I go over every page that I've written, 10 times. Just over and over. You have to be careful because after a while you recognize it all, and so you're not really reading it critically. But I don't have any great insights. I think I started reading a book about writing better song lyrics once, and the first piece of advice was sit down in the morning, write for 10 minutes, put it away.
Oh, wow.
Never even look at it again. Tomorrow, do the same thing on a different topic. And just keep doing that and so I get that, because it's a little bit like me needing to write the first page so that I can then go on and start to write something acceptable.
Well, you've written plenty that's acceptable. You've been on our radios, on our televisions, and I'd argue that you've done more to promote science and get Canadians excited about science than most. It's a remarkable thing. Right now, it feels like misinformation is making a big comeback.
Yeah, no kidding.
What keeps you motivated?
Well, I sort of detect two questions there. One would be, what do I think about, or how does one deal with misinformation? And that's a very, very challenging topic. I don't think many of the suggestions I've read, I'm not convinced that they work. I spend a lot of time with my wife doing science communications workshops, and we've been doing them for a long time, and sometimes it's kind of disappointing that we still encounter the same inadequate thinking about how to communicate science among scientists. I'm not blaming them. They've got to do research, they've got to get grants, they have grad students, they have administrative work. And to suggest, hey, a 2-week science communications course you'd really benefit from. Well, yeah, sure, maybe I would, but I can't. So there still needs to be a lot of tuning up in the message. And one of the really disastrous sort of things that still hang on is that sometimes you get the impression that scientists are talking down to you. It used to be called the deficit model, whereby scientists were led to believe, look, the general population, they just don't understand what you do. And if they did, then they'd agree with you. Well, that's complete bullshit. And, it really is. Like, it's never worked. And the most important thing that I think lacks, usually, is the respect for the audience. A scientist gets asked to, talk to a community group about their work. So they think, oh, what part of my research should I talk about? That's the wrong question. The right question is, what does this audience want to know? And you can just envision how that changes the tune completely. And I think that most general audiences are sort of curious about what scientists do every day. Like, they go to the building where they work, what are they doing? Are they having coffee and chatting? Are they actually doing experiments? Or are there grad students? There's a lot of mystery. So that's part of it. What keeps me, so I would like to do more, but I have to figure out what to do exactly to encourage more conversational approaches. Like, you're
From the science community to us.
Yeah,
like the way you do.
Yeah, but it's, you got to find some common ground if you're going to have a conversation with somebody. And if somebody is anti-vaccine and you're pro-vaccine, starting with the difference in your vaccine beliefs is not the right place to start. You're not going to get anywhere. And I've often believed, and I haven't exercised this yet, that sport is one way of establishing common ground. Like, I could go into a pub and there's a game on and there could be an anti-vax guy sitting next to me, but we're cheering for the same team. And so I can easily I watch probably too much sport, I could easily have a conversation about the team and everything else. And then you get a bit of a bond. Then the real trick is, how do you strengthen that bond so you can talk about other stuff? And it's very hard. You also asked me about what motivates me. I discovered very early in my life that I love science. And not the process so much, although I think it's pretty sound, but just the revelations about nature. And my parents played a role in that my mother gave me a bird guide when I was 7, and a book about nature at same age. And then I finally sort of discovered for myself that there's people in general are unaware of how fantastic the kinds of things that science uncovers are. So that's what motivates me.
That's a beautiful answer. Listen, we have 2 minutes left before we open it up to you fine people for some questions. So I want to end with a rapid fire game because I know you love them so much, right?
Okay.
To the man who's taught us so much, we're going to find out a little more about you because I still feel like there's things I want to know. So these are going to let us see your soul. But you have to answer them really, really quickly. Are you ready, Jay Ingram?
Yes.
What food do you associate most with your childhood?
Stew.
Stew, beef stew?
Yeah.
Yes.
I hated it.
That's part 2. Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Sorry?
Hot dogs or hamburgers?
Oh, God, I have a weakness for hot dogs, but I love hamburgers. Is that an ambiguous answer?
Yes, but we'll accept it. Cake or pie? 2 pieces in front of you. You only get one. What are you going for?
Cake.
What flavor?
Chocolate.
Excellent. Best chip flavor?
I don't really care. Basil tomato, okay,
Oh,
whatever.
come on.
I don't know.
You're going to redeem yourself. Favorite pizza toppings?
Oh, okay. More than quattro formaggi
Yeah.
and bacon.
That's nice.
That's
we
pretty
like that.
Pretty gross, actually. But
No.
anyway.
I support it. You're having eggs. How you having them? Over easy, over medium, scrambled, sunny side up.
Huevos rancheros.
Whoa, fancy boy. We got a fancy boy with us.
You see, you can't say anything, can you?
Favorite dish that you make for your family?
Oh, curry.
Oh, excellent. The table is set for 4. What 3 people, dead or alive, are joining you for dinner? And no family members or previous pets.
Okay, there's a scientist from the 1600s named Robert Hooke who had battles with Isaac Newton and generally lost, but did one of the best books on microscopic images ever. 2 other people.
2 others.
You know, I'd want. I've heard that Tom Cruise is an experience to meet. That he is. Imagine being positive, and then imagine being way more positive than that, and then that's Tom Cruise. I'd like to see that, and there's so many. Joan of Arc.
That is a very fine dinner party. Can you imagine? 4-cheese pizza with bacon on it, Joan of Arc, Tom Cruise, and that really smart-sounding 18th century science guy.
I'm quite fascinated by. No, I'm not supposed to go on about this, but I'm fascinated by Joan of Arc, not from the religious point of view, but from the point of view that she was an illiterate farm girl, 17 years old, who persuaded the guy who would be the King of France, but hadn't gotten to the throne yet because of the English, that she lead his army. She is a 17-year-old. She leads his army. The British have the city of Orléans under siege. She beats them. She drives them away. And then she goes on a multi-victory tour around France before she finally gets captured, interrogated by the University of Paris and the Roman Catholic Church, and burned at the stake. She was, anyway, I got interested because she heard voices. The voices that she attributed to 3 different saints who told her how to fight these wars. And, there were kind of, I thought, amateurish explanations like she was schizophrenic, which made no sense because schizophrenia is disordered thinking. Her thinking was anything but disordered. So she might not be that fascinating, I guess. Well, because she wouldn't talk about herself.
It's true.
But put Tom Cruise with her.
Tom Cruise, he'd get something out of her. Your curiosity is contagious. Thank you so much.
Thank you
I really
very
enjoyed
much,
talking
Jess.
with you. Let's turn it over.
Thank you.